there's still a lot more to discuss when it comes to TVs. And I know we mentioned micro RGB LED TVs just now, but I'm going to put Tim on the spot because I need you to explain, in layman's terms, why micro RGB might be the next big thing when it comes to the TV space.
Yeah, for sure. Let me give you a word of warning first. We're
Okay.
getting so advanced with TV display technology that it's becoming almost impossible to explain it in layman's terms at all. We're fast getting to the point where explaining how it works is almost impossible unless you have an engineering degree, because
Mhm.
you have to dumb it down so much to even explain it to the average person like myself that it's not even really accurate anymore, but I'll do my best, okay? So
Okay.
micro RGB, typically these OLED screens have either a white backlight or a blue backlight. These new micro RGB TVs actually use individual red, green, blue backlights. So it actually provides much stronger, the strongest I think ever seen color accuracy. It also provides better brightness, better contrast. The other advantage they have is they have more what's called local dimming zones. So you get truer blacks. So it's really a step above OLED. Samsung called it not just premium, but ultra premium. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But yeah, we're at the point where explaining the difference between micro RGB, mini LED, micro OLED, OLED. LG just introduced WOLED. Is getting tricky, and the truth is, TVs are fast approaching the limits of the human eye. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
reaching peak TV.
Yeah, and I've seeing it myself. It's like you can see the difference, but in like in practicality, you know, are you going to notice that difference, and is it going to be worth the price? So like, how premium are we talking about here? Do you have what can you tell us in terms of like what the price difference is going to be, and if you think that price difference matters, or if it's worth it, or if you're going to see that micro RGB come down as it becomes more and more adopted? What's your take on the pricing and how premium products are in the TV space?
Yeah, the pricing difference is extreme. So there's actually only one micro RGB on the market that I'm aware of from Samsung. It's about 115 inches. The sticker price is $30,000. Now,
Oh,
the micro RGBs showed off at CES are even larger and even more advanced. And I think there's a reason LG and Samsung didn't say how much they're going to cost. Now, yes, 5 years out, will this display technology be more affordable? We have to assume so, right? But if you're actually looking for TVs that you can afford and you can play games on, micro RGB may have been the big focus at CES. But for people actually in the market now, I would say forget our micro RGB. You want to get an OLED or a QLED. The honest truth is a nice OLED like the LG C6 or G6 that's coming this year, or Samsung's new S95H OLED TV. That'd be my personal recommendation. That's going to be a much more practical pick for the average person. But last thing I'll say, even a mid-range QLED TV is going to have an incredible display. So I mean, it's a really good time to be buying TVs, honestly.
so in terms of OLED, is there anything you could share in terms of LG bringing their OLED TVs up to like a higher standard or anything? Because I saw their new G6, and you mentioned their new G6, and that's still an OLED TV. Is there anything you could share in terms of why someone, like, for example, I'm still on a B series from like 5 years ago, and I saw that and I was thinking, like, is this something that I would want to upgrade to? Because it does, it does look better, but is there anything that they've shared with you in terms of how they've upgraded their standard OLED TVs?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely incremental upgrades over the previous generation. I went to a LG demo where they showed some of the new TVs side by side with some non OLED TVs or older generations, and the blacks were definitely much clearer. And I'd say the contrast was very impressive. There was no halo effect. The light wasn't, bleeding into the pixels over. The colors were extremely consistent. So if you want the top of the line, best possible display, and you've got the budget for it, I would say, yeah, upgrade for sure. But again, for the average person, the average gamer, do you need one of these flagship TVs? Not unless you've got, 2,500 to $5,000 to spare. I'd say for the
Yeah.
average person, I'd stick with your B5 or whatever it is for a couple more years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's always a question of practicality when it comes to new tech that is shown off at CES because it's kind of a show for a lot of companies to flex these new things, and they might not be the most affordable or approachable products out there. And that's kind of the thing is like, oh, maybe we'll see this in a more practical way 5 to 6 years from now. And I remember my first CES back in 2017. 8K was the big topic, and even at the time, I was like, yeah, 8K is not happening for another 10 years, and we're 10 years from that point almost, and yeah, we're not talking 8K. And I think like as far-fetched as micro RGB might be right now for a standard consumer, I do think that it is something a little bit more tangible than 8K, and hopefully we'll see that to be more approachable in the future. Especially
Yeah.
for coming from our perspective as like for IGN, like we care a lot about how these things perform with gaming. And so, you know, there's other things we look at in terms of latency, refresh rate, a lot of things that we would typically attribute to gaming monitors. We look for in TVs a lot more now with a much more keener eye. And Matthew, I know that you saw some gaming monitors and you have a lot to share with gaming monitors, but I want to throw it to you, David, first to talk a little bit about the TVs that your team saw, and if there's anything you would recommend in terms of like, you know, if you're a gamer and you have a console set up, a home theater set up, you don't want to blow $30,000 on a new TV. Some of the more tangible things that you saw that might appeal to that particular crowd.
Yeah, I've got my team, including my editor, Ty Pendlebury. He saw a lot of TVs. There are a few that stood out to me for just being a little different. So I bow to Tim and everyone else's TV experience here. But a couple that caught my eye that are probably here for a broader or someone who wants something a little different on their wall. Hisense's 116UXS is a big 116-inch mini LED TV. Huge, right? Beautiful machine. But its significant factor, its wow factor, is that it adds a cyan pixel. Now, this thing is supposed to make greens pop. And what do we need greens in? Sports. This is the green of the field is going to really come alive, presumably, with this addition to the RGB spectrum. So my assumption is this is TV makers going for a real sports demographic. Now, I know not all gamers are here with sports, but anything that gives us a brighter color gamut is going to be better and something that we really want to look toward as a trend, especially given that it's harder and harder to find games split across all these streaming options. And the other one we looked at was actually Ty's and CNET's best of CES was the Samsung S95H OLED. This thing is kind of like Samsung's The Frame in that like you plunk it on a wall and you have it rotate through some art, but you know, expanded to an extreme degree. This thing doesn't have burn-ins, so you can just let it sit in on an image for a while. It's kind of more of a nice luxury object, but at least your TV can do something different rather than sit there turned off for most of the day until you can get back into your gaming mode at the end of the day.
Okay. With Matthew focusing on more gaming monitors and gaming centric products, well, tell us about some of the stuff you saw. I saw some pretty sweet gaming monitors from Hisense, but I want to throw it to you first to let us know everything that you saw in terms of gaming displays.
Yeah, I think some new panels hit the market that let some of the gaming focused manufacturers do some interesting things with resolution and refresh rate. Acer and MSI in particular, I saw some cool ones from Acer that were dual resolution, dual refresh rate, so you could switch between like two different sets of them depending on your needs. So one was an Acer Nitro model, which is more their mainstream brand, but that was you got a really high res option, 5K, which obviously you're not going to game on, with a lower refresh rate, or a more standard QHD, boost the refresh rate. And then Acer had an interesting one that was up to 1,000 hertz, which, unlike the NVIDIA Pulsar, which is kind of a boosted, much like DLSS, it's sort of like a boosted software and hardware combined to enhance. This is a true 1,000 hertz, but only at 720p, which sounds like, why would anybody want to do that in 2026? I'm sure that doesn't sound very appealing, but there are those, those esports sickos out there, the hardcore competitive players. Even if you're not an actual professional gamer, there are people who high rank. That's the kind of game they play. They love to grind. Higher frame rate, the better. They were already probably dialing their resolution down as low as it could go, turning all the settings low. That way you can play 720p, 1,000 hertz. Get games like Counter-Strike, your favorite battle royale. You're boosting your frame rate super, super high. to get that best performance, or a more normal QHD 300 something hertz refresh rate, a little more reasonable. So it had all of those in one monitor. Is kind of a cool concept, and I think that's going to be something that MSI had something similar. So I think that's going to be something that kind of proliferates through the gaming monitor space.
Yeah, I saw something similar from Hisense as well, 5K, which is I think 5120 by 2880 if I got that right, which is a little higher than 4K. It's a little bit crisper, but it does have that high refresh rate of like 165 hertz, I think it is, and then it has like that switcher where you just like flip the switch and immediately goes to 1080p, 360 hertz, I believe it is. So that is like a trend that I'm seeing. If Hisense is doing it, Acer seems to be doing it. Other companies are trying that out. So maybe that's something that will be useful for the esports scene. But as a Counter-Strike 2 player myself and Valorant player, like I do tend to gravitate towards higher refresh rate. But when it comes to other games that I play, my single player cinematic experiences, I'm looking at the TVs again, and I think the one that I want to call out is the TCL X11L Super Quantum Dot SQD LED TV. Now, again, something that's going to be way out of my price range for now. It just came out during the week of CES, but I got to see it side by side with the rest of TCL's TVs, and it's one of the few TVs that hits, or maybe the only one that hits 10,000 nits of brightness and is able to take full advantage of Dolby Vision 2's HDR range. And when I saw them side by side, it was really bright, but not like it's not going to blow your eyes out. But I think the brightness also adds more texture to some of the things that you're seeing on the TV, and that's kind of like the SQD technology being put to use. And so I think maybe it's a little bit more impactful than micro RGB as of now. But the TCL X11L is probably my favorite TV that I saw at the show. If not for the LG wallpaper TV. I know some of us saw that as well. It's called the OLED Evo W6. And I'm a little skeptical on this one. I like how thin it is. It's 9 millimeters thin. So if you put it up on the wall, it's I think my index finger is thicker than this TV. But as a consequence, you need to have this set-top box that wirelessly beams the signal to the TV, since it doesn't have any ports on the TV itself. And that's where I'm a little skeptical about latency. They said that it's only like about 1 millisecond of latency, which is kind of normal across the board. They didn't let us test it out, but we did get to see it running images and cinematic videos and all that. But I want to try it out for myself because it is an interesting technology where it's just like this thing that is just plastered on the wall and everything is connected to this box, and it's wirelessly beamed, and it has LG's hub on it, so you could have things like GeForce Now and Xbox Cloud streaming if you're into that. But yeah, that is one of the standouts there. So lots of TVs and a lot of money that will be spent on a lot of these new TVs. But again, CES is also a look into the future, not necessarily what's practical for us now as consumers. But so long as you got an OLED in recent days, or if you got in a new gaming monitor in recent months, I'm sure you'll be fine for the next couple of years. You don't have to go out and buy these things right away. So whatever you have right now, it's going to be perfectly fine for gaming probably. And while I have your attention on the topic, if you're looking for some awesome video games to play right now on your TV or gaming monitor you'll already own, Humble has you covered. Right now on the Humble January Choice Bundle, we'll get you modern classics like Tomb Raiders 4 through 6 remastered, The Hunt Showdown 1896, Sonic Frontiers, and more, all for one low price. Head on over to humblebundle.com to learn more and start playing today.